Let's look at the Amish, with their insistence to stay as far away from modern conveniences, are going to be the ones who ride out the Armageddon in their horse-drawn buggies, and will be left behind to suffer the consequences of our ignorance and reliance on the government to fix everything for us. Take a minute out of your day to discover why this group of people, whose beliefs sometimes seem bizarre to us, actually have the right idea about what it takes to survive any kind of storm. Not only do these guys know what they're doing, they deserve more respect and admiration than any of us do. And when push comes to shove, we aren't going to be the ones who will make it out alive. People who are as capable and unreliant on conveniences as the Amish are going to be the ones who make it out at the other end of just about every disaster you can throw at them. From the time that they are children, the Amish learn how to build their own houses. They can rear and slaughter an animal. They can grow and harvest from the fields. How many of you can slaughter a cow, butcher the carcass, and preserve the meat? We don't build our houses, we buy them. You probably don't have the faintest idea of how the knife in your hand was even made. We've become devoid of any skills worth surviving from. What good will your social media followers be when you're lost in the wilderness? And if the world goes up in smoke, who do you think are going to be the ones rebuilding it? It's not going to be us, that's for sure. It's not that everyone in the community are experts at absolutely everything. No, each individual has his own specific line of expertise, but he's spent enough time around every other aspect of keeping a community running smoothly that he at least knows the basics of working with wood if the carpenter is in bed with the flu. It's about getting clued up, at least to some rudimentary degree, about as much information and basic skills as you can fit into a lifetime. If you can take one lesson from the Amish, it's humility. No man on earth will ever see the day where he's learnt enough. Make learning a habit. Make absorbing information, whether it comes from the form of a book or getting hands-on experience, as natural to you as drinking water. It's going to be the difference between life and death when society collapses. Weapons. First, we need to take a minute to talk about the Amish and their incredible handling of weapons. Yes, the famously non-confrontational traditionalists are amazing hunters and trackers. A lot of Amish actually have very extensive gun collections, and they take tracking especially very seriously. Just because they don't seek out a fight doesn't mean they won't protect themselves in the face of danger. It's the way that they approach weapons that needs a closer look. Just knowing how to shoot well enough isn't going to get you a pat on the back. Instead, they greatly value firearm maintenance, proper storage, and safety. It is taught to young men long before they get to even think of shooting anything. Tracking spores require an eye, an ear, and knowledge of the environment that takes time to hone. It is an art and a skill that is measured not by the amount of kills on your mantle, but by the skill that you apply around everything else besides pulling the trigger. Get yourself armed. Know about maintenance, what tracking actually is, and most of all, safety. The rest will come with time. Before that, you'll never get an animal to the butcher's block if you shoot off your own foot and your rifle jams with rust. In other words, being even a mediocre hunter requires much more knowledge and focus than just aiming and letting fly. Farming, gardening, and animal rearing. Look, we haven't farmed in a sustainable way since the Industrial Revolution. Since then, pesticides, GMOs, and monocropping have put our sustainability in serious jeopardy. Farmers just can't grow anything worth eating or selling without making use of chemicals and diesel-chugging machines to do the work for them. If any one of those aspects were to collapse today, the entire country would starve to death within the next month. Regenerative farming kept the world fed for thousands of years, yet we changed the whole system by forcing unnatural results, and in turn consuming an even more unnatural diet. If the Amish knows anything, it's how to feed their communities without the help of modern sprays and tractors. Rotational grazing and planting certain crops during the seasons that they are meant to grow. Producing their own compost. There are more ways in which they do it right than we can count. And lucky for you, people are reverting back to the old ways, because the food just grows better and yields healthier, more nutritious food. You will be able to find a homestead or an organic farm in your surrounding area. Get out there. Learn to grow what you're putting in your mouth. If your shelves are empty, your next meal could just be coming from your backyard. Preservation. Now that you've finally downed your first buck and grown your first harvest from the garden, how do you even go about preserving it? There is no shortage of videos on the internet about canning, drying, and preserving food. But can you actually do it without the dehydrator and the electrical canner? It's a little concerning how reliant we've become on appliances to do all the work for us. We're not saying that you can't make your life easier, but you need to at least know how to dry meat with smoke, without letting it spoil or having half the country's flies laying maggots in your hard-won buck, or getting a raging infection because your cans weren't sealed properly. Put in the practice. It really isn't even close to the hardest thing to master on our list. You just have to put the time to do each preservation method at least once. Though your efforts will produce such delicious results that you might just end up ditching the condiments and store-bought treats to can your own sauces and eat your own smoke-dried jerky from now on. It starts with vinegar, sugar, and salt. Some of the cheapest items in the grocery store are the baseline for what you need to preserve anything and everything. Canning is by far the easiest method and allows for the most experimentation. And with just vinegar, sugar, herbs, and spices in your kitchen right now, you can prepare a feast that will last a lifetime. Jellies, jams, salsa, corn, and beans. There's no limit to what you can do with a can, a stovetop, and some vinegar. Drying meat and fruit isn't hard either. If you're using smoke, it'll add flavor, remove moisture, and it creates a barrier to protect it from insects, all while using just the open air to do the rest for you. Or else you just need a few trays, a fan, and the natural rays of the sun, and your berries will be just as tart sweet 2 years later. If you're going to start anywhere, it's going to be at food preservation. Not only is it the easiest and arguably most important to master, it is, quite frankly, the most fun, just because the fruits of your labor are so tasty. Energy and water. Hand in hand with growing your own food comes energy and water sourcing. Knowing how to get your hands on water when there isn't a natural body close to you is a task that can be taken on in more ways than one. Pumping it from a long distance or storing rainwater in the long term require engineering and knowledge. Purification and storage are of the utmost importance. You need to know how to do both, and it'll be a good idea to know how to dig a well properly while you're at it. Energy is a wide scope. Explore all of your options: gas, coal, fire, solar, and wind. The more sources you utilize, the better. Like with farming, you can't have all of your eggs in one basket. If one malfunctions, then you at least have another to fall back on. Making these a part of your life now will teach you about how it works in the event that you will need to rely on it completely, and it's going to save you a hell of a lot on your utility bill. It doesn't matter if you're preparing for war or an economic crash. The first thing that's going to go down is the electricity. Do the preparation now before it's too late. Removing modern conveniences. None of us like the idea of living without dishwashers and air conditioning, but you really need to stop and think whether or not you actually need all of the clutter in your home. Minimalism has nothing to do with the clean countertops and bland colors that you see on Instagram. If you're approaching life minimally like the Amish do, it's about having what you need and not wasting the time or money on useless junk that changes according to the current trend. You probably haven't worn half of the clothes in your closet in years, and most of the boxes of instant noodles in your cupboard have reached their expiration date. Clean your house and keep the items that you need to live. What can be used productively and what adds value to your life? If you haven't used an appliance in the last year, that's not going to change tomorrow. That project that's been gathering dust in that garage, if it were worth fixing, you'd have it done already. The mental relief that you'll feel is a truly unexpected experience. Our lives are cluttered enough as it is. Bills, relationship, work, office dynamics, car maintenance schedules. It just never ends, and your home should not be a reflection of the chaos that's causing your anxiety. Instead, it should be your refuge, the place that you go to unwind. You might just find that the relaxation you feel in your house spills over into your work and social life too. Focus on what makes you happy and what you need to be fulfilled both in material possessions as well as personal. Community. Where we and the Amish differ the most is our sense of community. We preppers often make the mistake of thinking that it's us against the world and that we need to avoid people altogether. That kind of thinking will be the death of you. Making it out there for a few months is one thing, but what if self-sufficiency becomes a permanent arrangement? There's no way that a single person or even a single family unit can do it all. Purifying water, working the fields, tending to the animals, cooking with coal power and preserving every single morsel grown. Not to mention the general maintenance and building projects that are being undertaken without power tools. No, you need to disperse responsibility among the people in order to get everything done. And for that, you need, well, people. Being sociable is ingrained into our genes because it's pivotal to our survival. People and a community to rally with is not optional, it's necessary. Within groups, experts arise in their fields. New apprentices are trained to keep an industry growing. Trading your products gives you access to others' products. And that's how partners meet. Babies are born and mouths are fed by sticking together with others that have the same common set of values as you do, so that life can go on indefinitely. By getting integrated into a community that is of a like mind as you are, it gives you a constant crutch to lean on if you ever need help, and you must offer the same support in return. Once you start to barter and trade with your time, labor, and the products you produced yourself, you exclude monetary status from the equation, making the value based not on the weight of your wallet, but the weight of your contribution. Skills. You need a practical set of skills outside of your office job to fall back on when the grid goes down. Will you be valuable in a doomsday scenario if you can analyze Wall Street statistics? Not one bit. But your skills as a plumber, electrician, carpenter, seamster, farmer, and builder won't just be tradable, it'll be highly sought after. We can't all be doctors or soldiers, but you can learn how to cure leather or make a bar of soap from scratch if you don't already have a trade to make ends meet. Learn a skill that will make you valuable and necessary, and make sure that it's something you actually find pleasant. Staying alive isn't going to mean much if you can't find joy in living after all. Health and medicine. The average life expectancy of the Amish is 79 years of age. That's an astounding amount for people who make minimal use of modern medicine. The reality is that when you compare our 70-year-olds with an Amish 70-year-old, by the time that we're in chronic medication, we've had half a dozen stints in the hospital for something or another, and we're barely mobile due to our crippling arthritis and various conditions to slow us down. But even the oldest member of their communities are still as involved in daily farm chores as those who are 30 years younger. The reason they're so long-lived and healthy is twofold. Firstly, they began moving as toddlers and they just never stopped. There's no vegging out in front of the television for hours, binge-watching the newest series. They don't spend most of their lives behind a computer screen, and when they do have free time, they use it productively, fixing the leaky gutter or playing a game of fetch with their kids. We move so little that we need smartwatches to remind us to get the bare minimum amount of steps in every day. What? Were you proud of making 5,000 steps today? That isn't even half of what you should have done to be in decent shape. It's about staying active in an all-around sense. Your body and your mind is going stagnant behind your screen. And as every study has shown us, that's why your heart, your blood sugar, your joints, and even your memory is failing. As impossible as life without your television might seem, get rid of the damn thing and don't poison your children with it either. You'll never learn anything that'll help you to live self-sufficiently by watching Game of Thrones for the second time. We lose touch with our spouses because we don't talk to each other anymore. Our kids are getting much dumber and our bodies are suffering because of it. Use your free time with the people around you. Go for a walk or learn a practical skill. Get moving. And secondly, our Amish friends don't get antibiotics for every sniffle and ache. They eat such a well-rounded and healthy diet that they just don't get sick as much or as seriously. And chronic conditions are so rare that it's almost unheard of. And on the occasion that they do get a sniffle, they use natural remedies that don't have a list of side effects or cause antibiotic resistance that'll kill them when they finally do need to make use of it when something serious does happen. If you're going to start a garden, you might as well extend a patch to keep a medicinal arsenal from Mother Nature herself, too. It won't just get you through the flu and the migraine. It'll add so many nutrients to your morning tea that you can ditch the supplements entirely. We can stock up in our bunkers all you want, but it's not going to mean a thing when it runs out and your year plan becomes the very foreseeable future. For that, you need to know how to rebuild everything from scratch. You need to know the necessities. And most of all, you need to appreciate that people can give more to each other than even the most destructive army can take away. And it all starts with getting your feet and your eyes inside a community that actually lives this way already. Try your hand at everything at least once. Look, we're not saying that you should go live in the wild or become an expert on everything. But you should take a weekend and visit a place where people live like, or close to how groups like the Amish and the Mennonites do. The true scope of what we actually need to survive is going to be a mind-blowing experience for you. You've never really thought about just how a simple toilet has changed whether or not you live or die. Seriously, lack of plumbing used to be one of the biggest killers of mankind in the past. Cholera and infection due to sometimes minor injuries killed hundreds of thousands every year. Outside of childbirth, almost all of the leading causes of death can be attributed to sanitation, a terrible processed diet, and pest control. Yet the Amish have never had this problem. Why? Because every single part of life, no matter how seemingly insignificant it may seem, is taken with just as much seriousness as food preservation and arming yourself is. This is threat to survival. Prepare today, thrive tomorrow. Embrace the threat to survival.